swinging and a drive into right. Deep. Way back. Get up. Get up. Get out of here. Goal. He just hit a 3-run shot out of here. Wow. At the wall. He leaps. Oh, my goodness. He caught it. He caught it. And the ball game is over. Brew with that little heartbeat now. That was a must win.
All right, Brewer fans, welcome back to West Dallas, Wisconsin. Oh, actually, no, we moved on from bigger and brighter things from West Dallas. We still love all of the residents of West Dallas, but the Brew Crew Review is making its return. We've got on the line today Scott Bartell, Vince Travato, myself, Craig Miller, and unfortunately our fourth colleague, Chad Collins, was invited, but he told me this morning he was too hungover. So we're going to proceed without him this episode. Hopefully we can make it for our second podcast, but this is our first ever Brew Crew Review podcast. And unfortunately, Chad could not be here, like I said, but I guess it sounds like he's doing a little bit of his own spring training to get ready for opening day in the parking lot of Miller Park. So anyway, without further ado, what's going to be on today's podcast, we're going to go over kind of our little off-season synopsis, our thoughts on the Brewers off-season, some 2008 season predictions coming up, and then if we've got time, we'll do a little bit of stepping up to the plate where we'll rapid-fire some questions as well, answering here about the Milwaukee Brewers. So without further ado, let's get going with Scott. What was your take, first of all? Welcome back. And what was your take on the Brewers 2017-2018 off-season?
Oh, Craig, first I got to say, it's so great to be back, not only to represent West Dallas, of course, in the great state of Wisconsin, but, I mean, Brewer Nation, I guess, because, I don't know, there's a Brewer Nation, I suppose. But I'm not quite ready yet. Hang on one second. Okay, good to go.
It sounds like the great Scott Bartell is getting some sound bites ready, or possibly some beverages. I'm not sure, but
all right. So let's go over exactly what happened in the offseason. There was a little bit of everything. There was some really interesting things that happened. There were some things that we didn't expect, and there were some other things that didn't happen that were also a little unexpected. The things that we did do, we traded for Christian Yelich, who is amazing, but we had to give up Louis Brinson and company in order to obtain him. And then the signing of Lorenzo Cain was also amazing. And then there was a brief signing of Giovanni Gallardo again, who is no longer with the Brewers. That's breaking news, actually.
Good point, Scott.
that was a good recap. Scott, I guess to wrap up these recaps, what are your thoughts? Are you excited about the offseason? Was there stuff that you wish we did or didn't do? Or I guess how would you grade Stearns, and how excited are you for 2018, I guess, as a wrap-up?
I don't know. From what I understand, Stearns is a very smart man, and so it's really hard for me to judge him and figure out what's going on in his brain. But it was just interesting because I thought the last thing that we really needed was two more outfielders. But with the move, apparently, as of now, the Ryan Braun playing a little bit of first base, I guess it kind of makes sense.
Excellent. And then are you happy with the bullpen and the rotation and any additions or non-additions that you'd like to comment on?
The bullpen, I think, is going to be great. Really excited about them. But let's talk about the starting rotation. Do you guys think that we did enough there? Because I think everybody expected us to land a big-name free agent, and that, as of now, has not happened, and it doesn't look like it's going to.
Scott, do you think that David Stearns was ever planning on getting a starting pitcher? Maybe, I think we all heard some of the rumors that we were talking to Jake Arrieta and Alex Cobb, but it didn't seem like anything was too far down the line. Did you guys both think that there was a chance that we would actually get a starting pitcher, or was this just the media speculating?
I don't know. To be honest, I think that we all thought that there was going to be one. I guess it had to be media speculation because based on the offers that we were giving to some of these guys, there was just no way that we were going to land them. I mean, they were saying like, "Oh, we offered Alex Cobb 1 year, $12 million." Oh, I don't know why he didn't take that. So I don't think we were ever serious. It says a lot of people say that we were, but I just don't see that happening. I don't think we really made a run at a starting pitcher because for what people signed for, I think if we actually did make a run at him, we would have signed somebody.
Yeah.
All right, well, go ahead, Vince. What are your overall thoughts on the offseason and then your outlook on 2018?
Yeah, I loved the Christian Yelich acquisition. I thought that, it was a pretty hefty price to pay. But, that being said, I don't know. As Brewer fans, we probably overvalue our own prospects just as a general rule of thumb. I think Lewis Brinson, he could turn into something, and he might not. Miami's obviously a very much a rebuilding franchise after they traded Stanton and Ozuna and then Yelich to the Brewers this offseason. So they can afford to take a flyer on some of these guys that, I actually think that at the end of the day, we might miss Monty Harrison the most out of that trade. I guess time will tell about the prospects. You just never know. But I like Yelich a lot in the Brewers outfield. I think that it's great that he's cost controlled and he's under team control for what I think another 5 years after he signed that extension in Miami. So that's very exciting. Lorenzo Cain still is a very quality outfielder. I love the fact that he's a versatile player. I think that he's a guy who can add a lot to a lineup. The fifth year it surprised me a little bit. I thought that we may have exceeded what other teams were offering him with that fifth year. But, one thing that I think does have to be kept in mind is that the Brewers have not spent much money in the last 2 seasons. So in that sense, I guess we can afford it. But I was a bit surprised that we didn't get another starting pitcher to add to our rotation. I think that, if I had to guess, that we probably were involved in some of these talks, but that Stearns just didn't think that this crop of free agent starting pitchers was worthwhile. I'd be very surprised if we're in contention and we don't have to add a starting pitcher at the deadline, though. And I will also say that I do like some of our bullpen moves. We've picked up Matt Albers, and I also like the acquisition of Boone Logan, except he got injured this past week in spring training. So unfortunately, he's going to have to wait to make his Brewers debut for, I think, 4 to 6 weeks, which is very unfortunate, meaning that he's not going to come back until, early to mid-May at this point. So that's too bad. But I still like our pen. I love Josh Hader. I think that he's shown the skill set that scouts and others have evaluated him with in the last few years. We really are depending a lot on Corey Knebel. I don't know that we have another closer that's ready to step in, unless it's Hader or maybe someone with some experience like a Jeremy Jeffers. But overall, I'd give Stearns a B for the offseason.
And
that's a great synopsis, Vince.
I guess we should also point out that, not only are we going to miss Boone, but we're also going to miss Wade Miley. He was a big acquisition. He was supposed to shore up our starting rotation. And I hope I say this right. I really do. I think it's, let's see here. Yolis Chassin, is that right? I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's going to be also in the rotation, I assume. So that hopefully he's a diamond in the rough. So I guess we're going to find out if, we always said, oh, Melvin, he'll just go out and get a nugget. And it'll be like some closer that everyone gave up on, and he'll just come out and be lights out. And that was kind of Melvin's thing. So maybe this is Stearns.
Yeah, my biggest concern with the rotation is we don't really seem to have a proven true ace. And I know that they're tough to come by in Major League Baseball, but with Jimmy Nelson being injured, he's our most likely candidate to be an ace. Obviously, you can't help injuries, so we really have to hope that Chase Anderson repeats again this year, which isn't a guarantee. And Zach Davies, had flashes of brilliance last year, but he also had flashes where he was not a very good quality starting pitcher. So he's penciled in as the number 2 starter, I believe, at this point. And we're really banking a lot on Anderson and Davies to repeat the good years that they had last year. I still think that we're missing that number 1. If Nelson can come back to form, he can be, somewhat in that caliber. But even when he's fully healthy, I still think that if we're going to be a playoff contending team, we still need another top of the rotation arm, and unfortunately, they're very tough to come by. So it's been an interesting offseason. I know Craig, you love Wade Miley, but I don't know what you can count on for a guy like Miley, who has an up and down track record and mostly down the last couple seasons in Baltimore. And it surprised me that it didn't surprise me that we signed Chastain. It surprises me that we're counting on him to be our number 3 starter.
All right, I'll go now, and I will start off by responding and saying I do love Wade Miley, and I only love him when he's pitching against the Brewers, not for them.
Oh no!
So with his inflated 5 to 6 ERA, he's usually better if he's on the opposite end. But pitching for the Brewers is a little bit dicey. But I'll basically just quick agree with your guys' points. I absolutely love the Yelich trade, and I also agree with Vince that Monty Harrison could be possibly that best player in that deal when it all is said and done, kind of like the Michael Brantley was when Laporta was supposedly a headliner of that CC deal, and Brantley ended up being the best player. I have a funny feeling that they have with this Monty Harrison. He'll be the one we regret giving up, but it's worth it, and especially for Yelich to bring him in with his experience, and he's entering his prime. He's locked up for 5 years at a reasonable rate. Those opportunities don't come up to acquire via trade, and I'm glad that Stearns jumped on it and was willing to pull the trigger and give up on a little bit of potential for a sure thing. And I'm really excited to see what Yelich can do at Miller Park, moving on from the Marlins. So overall, I love that move. Kane move. Personally, I love Lorenzo Kane. I think we did overpay mostly in length of that contract, more so than just the money, but if that's what needed to be done to get him under wraps, I think it was worth it. And I do like the fact that Stearns acquired 2 outfielders, even though going into the offseason, it didn't look like we need to acquire any. Well, I think showing that he'd make those moves to better the team, it gave us not really having any leadoff options to now having 2 guys that could potentially bat leadoff. And I'm hoping Kane will be our leadoff hitter and Yelich a great number 2 hitter. And then, with the guys in the middle of our lineup with Braun and Shaw and Thames and Santana and everyone else, I'm really excited about this Brewer lineup going into this year. I'm a little bit miffed on the fact that they didn't do more to bring at second to address the second base. I think that might be still a little bit iffy. And as we're talking about the rotation overall, some concerns. First of all, I think Brewer fans are banking on Jimmy Nelson coming back this season by All-Star break at the latest at full strength, and I think that could be a dicey thing to count on. And the same thing, Chase Anderson could regress. Hopefully he doesn't. Like you said, Kyle Davies isn't exactly an ace, but he's a decent pitcher. Julio Chacin, I think he's more of a mediocre 4th or 5th starter and somebody that could be easily replaceable. I hope he's there enough that he can take the next level and become a better pitcher than he has shown he has been up to this point in his career. And with our pitching coach, I think that's a good possibility. So I'm glad to have him added for nothing else other than depth. Was disappointed that we didn't land someone like Arrieta or even Darvish. I know that some of you guys here really wanted Cobb, and we missed out on him. And he could have been a good value, but I'm fine with Stearns moving out without him, mostly because of Brent Suter. I think that he's someone that Stearns really has a lot of faith in and could be a good back of the bullpen type guy and a lefty at that. So we'll see what becomes of that. And there are other guys like Guerra that could bounce back as well. I think more than anything, they might signal that this is kind of going to be the last year of our rebuild, so to speak, where I don't think Stearns is going all in this year. And with Nelson being out and a question mark, that gives some, by not acquiring someone like Cobb or another, mediocre free agent, to give some major league innings and some experience to guys like Brandon Woodruff or maybe later in the year Corbin Burns, so that they can get that experience, and it'll just make either of those or both those guys, if they're still with the Brewers, better major leaguers starting next season. And I think it'll really be on starting next season for the excitement for the Brewers. And not that they should be excited this year, but I think that lack of move in the rotation is kind of a signal that we're still not going all in. And unfortunately, the bullpen, I think Knebel is great, but he could regress a little bit, and that worries me. And as far as the addition that we made to the bullpen, I'm not a big fan of bringing guys like Jeffers back, or I'm not huge on Albers or Logan. But with that being said, sleeper in the bullpen, Taylor Williams, is throwing over 95 miles an hour, and he's got a pretty wicked slider too. And he's coming back from injury, and I think he's going to be a sleeper in our bullpen. So watch out for his name, even if he doesn't start off the year with on the 25-man roster. I think he'll be someone who makes an impact. So, but overall, I do think the Brewer, it'll be an exciting season, and just to have Yelich and Kane at the top of the lineup, and we'll see if this Braun at first experiment works. But if nothing else, if the Brewers are doing good, Stearns has options to trade to improve the team before the deadline. So, I think we'll let the season play out. But overall, how could you not be excited? The Brewers had probably one of the most aggressive and positive off seasons of any other team in the major leagues, outside of maybe the Yankees or something. So, yeah, I'm excited, and I think any Brewer fan should be.
Well,
one other thing, Craig, to kind of go ahead, Scotty.
Oh, I was just going to say, let me ask you guys this then, because last year the big problem that we had, well, not a problem, but, at the trade deadline, everybody thought that we were going to go in on Sonny Gray, and we did not pull the trigger on that. Again, kind of alluding to what Craig was saying, we weren't ready to go all in. However, if we make that trade, we'd likely make the playoffs. We only had to get one game better, and we didn't do it. So do you think that if we're in a good position this year, is that something that we're going to do? To me, it seems like it has to be done this time around, but I don't know.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Scott, I think last year the team's play on the field really surprised the organization, including Stearns. Obviously we were in the middle of a rebuild, and the team's, the win totals of previous years have not indicated playoff contention yet. So I think that maybe that explains the lack of pulling a trigger on a starter at the deadline last year. One thing to keep in mind, too, is if we would have picked up Sonny Gray, we would have a very quality arm in our rotation, but we also wouldn't have had the chips, to acquire a Yelich probably this offseason. So, you give and you take a little bit. I don't know that last year we could have pushed too far in the playoffs, even if we would have made it. With that one game difference, we probably could have made it with Sonny Gray, I think, in our rotation the second half, but or Quintana, who the Cubs got. But that being said, it wasn't still necessarily the best team to go to the playoffs with. I think that what I'm hopeful with is that Stearns is building a team that's quality up and down. And what I was going to say before too is that I think when you look at the second half last year, it was really our offense that faltered in many ways, not our starting pitching. So when we're looking at Stearns' track record, you could argue that, he tried to bolster the offense, and he did a bit with the acquisition of Neil Walker in the second half of last season. He shored up the bullpen, which was kind of a weak spot for a while last year until Hader was brought up, and then with the acquisition of Anthony Schwarzak, and then
we're gonna miss him.
Yeah, and then we are, and then this and maybe even Jared Hughes too, and then this offseason he tries to address the sluggish second half offense by getting Yelich and Kane, and I think a very strikeout prone offense as well. So by getting the talents of guys like Kane and Yelich who don't strike out very often, you're kind of changing the nature of what our biggest problem was in last year's second half too.
Yeah, no, I think him addressing the offense with Kane and Yelich, I think our offense is going to be just 10 times better than it was last year with those guys at the top of the order. And obviously Nelson's injury is we're hopefully he comes back, but it's not a sure thing, that type of injury, and you just never know what you're going to get, and it's just so unfortunate because, as a Brewer fan, you sit back here at the trade deadline all excited that the Brewers have the rare chance of being in a wild card shape, and that's not really doing anything. And the Cubs went out and got Quintana at the deadline last year, and then this offseason signed Darvish. And the Brewers are sitting on their hands when it comes to the top of the rotation starters on both those. It's kind of frustrating. I think we'll see what happens, but hopefully there's someone available at the deadline this year that can fill that role for us in Stearns before. Or if this isn't the Brewers' year, next off season there'll be a lot of nice free agents that we could possibly target, or next trading deadline. I mean, the bottom line is the Brewers' arrow is pointing up, and the future is bright. And I think I don't think anyone was expecting the Brewers to have a season they did last year, and that this was probably going to be a rebuilding year anyway. So with that all in mind, the team that we're putting on the field to start 2018 is just pretty exciting to me. So
don't
probably wrap up that.
Don't forget too, Craig. I was just going to say quick that the Cubs gave up a lot when they acquired Quintana. at the deadline too. I mean, I think it was 4 prospects that they gave up that were all pretty highly regarded, if I remember correctly. So, for the Brewers to have done that, I don't think we could have acquired Yelich. I think that we gave up what we got to get Yelich, and we kind of made a choice to, instead of going after Quintana or Gray, to target an offensive player this offseason. So maybe that was the thinking. I don't know, but.
Well, no, and now our offense, I think, is almost on par with the Cubs' offense, even if our starting rotation is still far behind.
Right.
I think our bullpen might be better. So, I think we should still be very competitive with the Cubs moving forward. If not this year, definitely beyond this year. So it definitely will be fun battles in the NL Central for the next years to come, especially because of our young GM. So,
and all our pitchers can go to first base.
Awesome.
Hey, I wanted to ask you, by the way, do you guys think in this offseason, setting everything up, do you think maybe we should have done a little bit more at second base?
I'll chime in and say yes, mostly because I don't think VR or Sogard should be starters. I think they should be utility players, if that. And I think unless Hernan Perez steps forward and becomes a quality everyday second baseman or something like that, or I'm not sure exactly what they were thinking when we could have brought someone back like Neil Walker on the cheap. But I guess that non-move just leads me to believe that Stearns wants this year to evaluate what we've got at second base when it comes to VR and Perez, and the same thing with the back end of the rotation. Like, what do we really have in Guerra, Woodruff, and even Burns if he gets some innings this year? And if we had a full rotation, those guys might not get MLB innings, which are going to be very valuable for their development. So, or they could turn themselves and increase their trade stock going into the trading deadline this year to acquire someone even better than what we could have signed. So,
yeah, I was really surprised with the amount that Walker finally got from the Yankees. I mean, obviously he waited till late in the offseason to finally sign his contract, but it seems like he was bound to get a multi-year deal, and at least a 2, maybe even a 3-year deal at the outset of the offseason. And as the free agency kind of wound through, it just didn't happen. So yeah, I wish that we would have known in retrospect when we re-signed Sogard what Walker ended up signing for. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. All right, so this for the next segment, we'll call it like the 2018 season predictions. Why don't you guys each, we'll go around in circles here, and each throw out your Brewers win total for 2018, your prediction for that. Any comments you want to make, and then if you want to pick the division winners and kind of predict that, the wild card winners, and who you think will win the World Series this year, we'll do that real quick. So, Vince, you want to start off?
Yeah, that's fine. I think that the Brewers, we're a good team. I don't think that we're a great team yet because of our starting rotation. Unfortunately, I do think our offense is better than most in the National League. I'm gonna say that we're gonna end up with about 86 wins this year.
Okay.
And I think that the Cubs unfortunately win the division. So I'm gonna say that the Brewers will be in wild card contention. That the Cubs will end up winning the division again. They had an off year last year in many ways, and they still won the division, so it's going to take a lot to surmount that. We're going to have to hope for the best with not only our starting rotation, but if the Cubs are not as good. Overall, I think it's still hard to bet against the Dodgers. They've got Kershaw coming back. I would not be surprised to see the Dodgers repeat in the National League and win the National League pennant. And because of the strength of their starting pitching and their organizational depth and their ability to acquire a big name at the deadline with their unlimited financial resources, I would not be very surprised if the Dodgers were to be the world champions this year.
Okay, Dodgers world champions. Your prediction, Scott?
Well, first I want to say that the Dodgers, how many starters do they have now? Do they have like 8 or 9? It's unbelievable. They
they're down to 8.
They just keep throwing guys in the DL. They have so much depth there. It's really hard to bet against them. But,
crazy.
All right. Sorry, Craig. What did you want me to answer? Just who's
predict the Brewers number of wins and overall outlook, and then if you just want to pick a World Series winner, or if you want to fire off a couple of surprise playoff teams, whatever you want to do, just to do some predictions for 2018, the season for the Brewers and MLB.
You know that in fantasy I always draft Dodger pitchers, and so the thing is though is that I can't pick the Dodgers after Vince picked the Dodgers, I guess. But I'm gonna say I actually I had the Brewers pegged at 87 wins this year, and that it's gonna be close.
Scott, you said that. Scott, I just said that same total.
When he said
No, you said 86. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
I know, but I would have stuck with that one no matter what, even if I was the exact same as you, because I had that one figured out beforehand. But I wasn't expecting a World Series champion. I'm not picking. You know what? I'll just say I don't know. Houston has they definitely have the offense to repeat, so I'll just go with them.
All right. Houston repeat and 87 wins for the Brewers. We're almost all falling in line with the Brewers wins. Of course, I'm going to come up to pessimist, but I'm going with 85 wins. Again, probably about 3 to 4 games off the wild card, and last year we finished a game out, unfortunately. And I think it'll still feel like we're in the race, but unfortunately come up short a little bit. And like I said, this isn't the year I'm really expecting us to catapult into the playoffs, and we definitely don't have the roster to go deep in the playoffs anyway. But with that said, I think it's going to be huge in our last year of development and our rebuild, and we'll see what happens in the trade market this middle of this season. And I think it'll just be an exciting year top to bottom, and for Brewer fans to be able to enjoy Yelich and Kane, who are arguably two of the best players on the team that we've acquired this offseason. Honestly, I think you could put them above any other player, even Braun, at this stage of his career, as far as the two best players on the team. So any time you can add guys like that during the off season, and not only that, but each of them control for 5 years. I mean, that's more than a golf clap for Mr. GM Stearns right there. So, in spite of missing out on some decent free agents, starting pitchers, I think overall you did a pretty good job putting the roster together. And we'll see. Hopefully, eventually he can get something for Santana or whoever he decides to move. Because I'm a little leery about Braun, being able to play at first base full time. And again, he's starting off just against left-handers. Obviously, we have Thames course, but we'll see what happens as we move forward. But I'd say 85 wins for the Brewers, and overall, I think a couple. I guess I've got written down here. I'll just go over the division winners. I got the Yankees, Indians, Astros, with the wild cards going to the Red Sox and the Angels, and the NL. I got Nationals, Cubs, Dodgers as division winners, the Diamondbacks, and the surprise team, the Phillies, are making the second wild card. And overall, for the World Series, I'll pick the Indians over the Nationals. I know that both the Astros and the Cubs have got their World Series monkeys off their back last couple of years. Why not let the Indians get in on that action too? So that's my prediction there. And we have just enough time before we wrap it up here. We're going to do a stepping up to the plate segment where we'll go around. We'll flop off who starts first, Vince or Scott, on each question, and I'll round out each one. All right, so here we go. We'll start off with stepping up to the plate. Vince, let's have you start off. Surprise playoff team.
I'm going to go with I'll say Oakland, Craig. I like Oakland a little bit.
Oh, okay, yeah. That's a good pick. They have a surprisingly good lineup. I don't know what they're pitching, but yeah, surprisingly nice lineup, and young too.
Is it a total homer thing if I say Brewers barely make it? That's kind of where that 87 wins came from. I think if we finish out,
that's fine.
I think we'll make it.
And my surprise team will be the Phillies. I think they've really improved themselves this offseason, and they're kind of finishing up their rebuild, kind of like where we are at. I think they'll be a breakout team. So, all right, Scott, start us off on this next round. Brewer breakout player this year. Shaw, as an example, would be last year. So, surprise Brewer breakout.
I don't know. That requires a lot of thought, Craig.
This is supposed to be rapid fire, Scott.
I know. I'm trying to think. I'm like,
doing great.
Vince, Vince, you chime in first, or whoever's got one.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to go. I know he's already a solid player. I'm going to go with Arcia. I think that he's going to have a big year this year. I'm pretty excited about him, and think that he can get some protection in the lineup. And our inside source, you can't say his name on the air, but Tom C. or T. Carter, because you can't say Tom Carter's name on the air, but I think you agree with me.
I'll go with Hernan Perez. I think he'll steal the second base job and put up surprisingly great numbers for a second baseman.
Nice.
You know what? I just made fun of him a little bit before. I'm going to say Yalish Yassin. I think he's going to be respectable. And that That's just what we need at the back of the room. He's not going to
Hey,
get.
Craig, I'll say my runner-up is somebody you brought up before. I think like a Taylor Williams or even like an Adrian Hauser, if he gets called up, could both be surprising. Valuable additions to our bullpen.
Absolutely. All right, well, third round here, or third inning. Let's go with Vince. Who do you think will be the Brewers' number 5 starter once Nelson returns to the rotation?
I think that you're going to see Suter at that point be our number 5. Yeah, I think Suter ahead of Woodruff.
Scott?
I would agree with that, actually.
Okay, and just to give you guys a heads up, we have about 3 minutes left, so we're going to try to do this rapid. I'm going to go with Suter or possibly Dark Horse and Corbin Burns. All right, next, Scott, you start off with this one. Which Brewer starter will lead the team in wins this year?
Chase Anderson.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was going to say Anderson as well. Even though Davies gets lucky every time he pitches, even with a higher ERA, he still gets a ton of wins.
Yeah, I'll stick with Davies again. All right, Vince, on this one, which Brewer will lead the team in home runs?
In home runs, let's go with Yelich. I'm sorry, let's go with Shaw.
All right, Scott?
Yep, I agree. Shaw.
All right, I will go with Braun. Surprisingly, he'll stay healthy and put up the best numbers he has in a few years. All right, Scott, start us off. Your favorite offseason acquisition?
I think it's got to be Yelich.
Okay, Vince?
Yeah, Yelich.
Yeah, I'll say Yelich. I love Kane too, but let's go with that. Okay, Vince, which starting pitcher do you hope the Brewers could trade for at the deadline? Like Stroman, Archer, Duffy, or someone else?
No question. I'm a Stroman guy all the way.
Okay, Scott?
Stroman has all the talent. He has all the raw ability, but he's hurt me in fantasy before, so I'm going to go with Archer.
Okay. I'm going to go with Stroman too, even though I don't think we're going to acquire him. All right. Let's see who led off that one. Scott, you start off. Which current Brewer minor leaguer that hope the Brewers do not trade this year?
Do not trade. You know what? This is another one I can't pronounce, but our first round pick last year, he just raked all spring.
Hira.
Okay.
Hira.
Keston Hiura, I think. Yes. Okay. What about you, Vince?
Yeah, thanks for picking me up.
Yeah, I like Hira a ton as well. I think the guy's got some serious talent when it comes to his offense. Otherwise, I'll think Corbin Burns is our top pitcher at this point.
All right, that's my pick, Corbin Burns. All right, Scott, you start us out on this one. Last question. Tim Dillard, good man or great man?
Tim Dillard is a great man. He does a lot of great things. Great man.
Vince.
Yeah, the question should be great man or the greatest man. I think, well, besides Scott, I think Dillard having that interview with Scott was in 2005 was pretty special, and forever will be memorialized in Brew Review history and Brewers history and Tim Dillard's personal history and Twitter feed.
I agree. Great man all the way. And I saw him pitch in spring training this year on the television. It was awesome. He came in to relieve when Knebel had to go out with an injury, but it was awesome. And, yeah, feature one of these rounds, we should do who's a greater man, Scott Martell or Tim Dillard, but we'll save that for a future one. So on this episode, we got to wrap it up because we're about out of time. Guys, it's great to be back.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Craigers. Thanks, Scotty. Good talking to you guys. Thanks, Chad.
And we hope some of our old West Dallas viewers of the Brew Review are still alive so that they could tune into this podcast.
Yeah,
or that Joe they possibly even.
Yeah, Joe Rovat, Marty Ronsky, Marty on the press box. Yeah.
Too many people to list.
Hopefully,
really. So many great fans.
What was Marty's last name? Marty
Welskop.
Yeah.
Welskop. Yeah.
Yep. Mark Antoniak, Marty Welskop.
Hopefully, most of them have been able to purchase a computer by this point in their life. So we've got a shot, guys.
Thanks, guys. Go Brewers.
All right, go Brewers. We'll see you on next week's podcast. Hopefully, the Brewers, after their opening season, hopefully they can opening series against the Padres and starting our next homestand. Hopefully, they are still in next time and we can still salvage our season by the time we start our next podcast. We'll talk about that then.
Thanks, guys. Go Brewers.